Good afternoon.
Let's get it underway. First question from someone. Gabrielle, down here. Hold on, we'll have a microphone for you.
Gabrielle, London Magazine, Germany. How do you feel you linked the funding after all these years when you first recorded on the machine?
The circumstances are great, really, because normally we don't do commercial linkage really too much. I don't do commercials, but the circumstances being that they were so interested in promoting the school in Liverpool that it feels very good to me. As you say, I did start off originally with the machine with a little green eye blinking at me, and so it's good to be involved with them, as I say, particularly because of the support of the Liverpool Institute for Performing Arts, which we are trying to get off the ground.
There's Alec Blom over there.
Hi, Alec.
Hi.
All right.
With all this money coming in from Brussels and from German companies now, your dream seems to be coming true. Tell us how you feel about that.
Well, when I came into this thing, I think you may know that it was really because the school was falling down, and I talked to someone immediately after the Toxteth riots, and it was a bloke from Toxteth, and he said what Liverpool needs is a fame school. And the idea caught with me. Lots of other people have said, well, you've got to get up there and try and start car factories and things like that up there. But I don't have any expertise in that field, so I couldn't possibly do that. But he put this great idea to me, and since then I've got very heavily involved in fundraising, which I didn't realize it's as difficult as it is. And particularly we chose this time during a recession to try and get people to part with their money. So it's really quite difficult. And we've been waiting for this big funding from Europe to come in, because it really means now we're actually on the road to being able to open up in 1995. So I'm well chuffed. We're very thrilled. Mark's very thrilled, as you can tell. Mark, please, sorry. Contain yourself. He's the emotional one.
Yes, that's right.
But no, we're very, very pleased. It's a great dream. I think when we do get it working, I think it is going to be very exciting, certainly for me, to go and see my old school saved, because it was going to fall down. I think there's no doubt about that, and it was built in 1825, so you don't need these kind of buildings to go falling down. So I think we're all very excited. Long answer to a short question.
Danny Shaw, BBC Radio News 93. What's your vision of the school in the future, Paul? Do you see it churning out younger Paul McCartneys and George Harrisons?
No, I hope we don't churn out anything. The thing is, as I say, this original suggestion was put to me after the Toxteth riots, and what the bloke meant was, something's got to be done. You can't just leave the situation where people are rebelling and don't like authority and have nowhere to go in the world. So my vision really is to give kids, overseas kids and local kids, a direction, somewhere where they can put their talents. And I think what was interesting about this is that you don't necessarily need to be very clever academically to be in music, in drama, or in various aspects of theatre world. So really for me it's to give kids a chance. Hopefully we'll be turning out people who are smart, but not too smart, who have a decent direction in the world, so that they can then give other people, some sort of hope for the future. That's what I think is needed now. If you read the newspapers, you listen to the media, I think a lot of us get a feeling that it's about to collapse. It's like, will we make the next century? So this idea is based on trying to combat that. So we're hoping to turn out good people who will be useful in society, and more importantly for us, who will be useful in our own business, the music business and theatre business.
Adrian Nicholas from Capital Radio. Could you paint a picture for us what LIPA will be like when someone sets foot for the first time in the place? What facilities will be on offer when people send in these tapes? What will it be like?
Well, we're at a planning stage at the moment. The first thing to do was to save the building. So We're now thinking of those kind of questions, exactly what it'll be like. And I think whatever we think will change by 95, because that's one of the things we're hoping, to be flexible. Because, you can't quite tell what's going to be happening then. Something new might be required. But basically, I'm hoping that they'll come to my old school, where I think I got a really good start in the world. For a kid whose parents, didn't have a car, a television, and we were in a council house, I got virtually an Eton-style education. Classics, Latin, science, the whole works, I didn't want it at the time, but I got it. And so we're hoping to give that kind of a broad spectrum to people. I think there's going to be a strong music input, because I'll be bringing a lot of my friends, hopefully. I'm already hitting them for a day here and a day there. You've got to come for a day. And they'll be professional people. So you won't just be getting a bloke who's teaching you the theory of how to make a record. You'll be getting a bloke who makes hit records teaching you, So we're hoping for a very hands-on approach like that. And we're hoping to make a place that will inspire people. And the day-to-day running of it, well, it'll be a school. The classes will involve music, drama, and dance, and other things as well. We're hoping to teach people like roadies. Now, 10 years ago, you would have sort of laughed at the idea of a road manager being a serious position. But when I go on tour to the States next week, we'll be taking about 140 people. A lot of them have to be very on top of what they're doing. You have to be computer operators. So the game's changed. It's a very interesting profession, I think, for young people now. So that's basically, what we're hoping to offer them.
Lady in the front.
A lot of kids that go to stage school end up really kind of stagey, and they have their sort of personality sucked out of them. How are you going to stop that?
At the moment, I'm talking to Mark, and my role at the moment is to kind of try and address that question, really. How I'd put it a bit more is that in my own particular branch, when we first started talking about this, we were talking about one of the guys out of the Christians, the Liverpool group, and he said, well, what are you going to tell them, Paul? He said, you didn't have any lessons, and I didn't. He said, so how are you going to tell them? And I think that is one of the most important things, is to how to get away from the normal kind of product that comes out of these schools. And so that's what I'm interested in with this school. Now that we've, well, touch wood, now that we've saved the building, now we have to look at the approach of how, and that's what I'm talking about, being flexible. If I ever take a class, I'll walk in and I'll say, okay, kids, I have no idea how to do this. I mean, it won't be sort of, here's how you write a song, because one of the joys for me is I still don't know how to do it. I've never developed a formula. So I'll be trying, and many people would agree with that, but I'll be taking a very flexible attitude and hoping to develop their own personalities rather than imposing some sort of thing on them. And the nice thing is there really aren't too many precedents for this school. Stage schools and stuff, as you say, the London stage schools, we know a lot of the people come out of them, and there's nothing wrong with that. They all seem to do quite well in that. But we'll be hoping to avoid that kind of stereotype. But in the truth, we don't really know what we're going to get yet, because it's a new venture. We're keeping very open as to how we try and teach these kids. As I say, because I never had a lesson in my life, and I haven't done bad.
Gentleman over there.
Paul, Charlie Robbins, German Radio High. I guess some of the people, one or two, might be... Sorry, excuse me.
We can't see you up here, it's a bit bright.
One or two of the people attending the college might even feel that success would be attaining a Paul McCartney type status. What does success mean to Paul McCartney today?
Success means freedom. I've had it both ways. When I was a kid, when I went to this school, when it was a grammar school, I've known not having success. I've known not being able to use your brain, having to do what other people teach you. I think what I've achieved now, through the Beatles and through things since then, and with the help of the school originally, has been to be able to do what I want, within reason, And I think that is really what I'd like to give people, is the ability to be free with themselves. I think that's very important. So that's how I'd answer that.
There's a lady in
Alison Roberts from The Times. Do you think that British pop music needs an injection of inspiration like this?
Well, yeah, I think we can all use an injection of inspiration. I wouldn't say that the British pop music scene is so bad that it needs, livening. I think it's pretty good, actually. I don't think it's in a bad state. But I don't think there's anything wrong with inspiration wherever it comes. I think, all of us can use a bit of inspiration occasionally. And really, I think why I'm interested in this is rather than just go down the road that everyone's gone down. And, you think what was the answer to the Toxteth riots, really? It was a garden festival, wasn't it? If you remember back to that was sort of what the government weighed in with. And it was something. It was nice. It made the people of the city feel good for a year or two, but it's a bomb site now. There's nothing left there now, and it's in a terrible condition. And so I think, if we can, without being too big-headed and saying, yeah, I can inspire them, I think if somebody at the school can give them a feeling that that they can do it and that there is some kind of future, then, yeah, I think that is very necessary to all of us, not just the pop scene.
Have you asked Ringo and George if they'll teach in the school, and how regularly will you be able to lecture?
I haven't asked them if they'll teach there. I've asked them for donations, and they were very generous. And George, being an old boy of the school like myself, was very interested, and Ringo too. He keeps asking me when it's going to open, The thing about it is that I haven't actually got any promises off anyone yet, but I'll do that nearer the date. But people have shown such willing. If I said to someone like Ringo, come and do a lecture, his first reaction would be no. I know that, because it would be mine too. It's not our business. It's not the kind of thing I want to do. I don't want to do this even. This is not me, really, he said, smiling at the camera. But, I'd like to go and write songs. I'd like to go and play music. But there comes a point in your life when you've sort of got to do things like this and give a little bit back. And the cause, I think, is so good that I think, even though I haven't asked them, I'm betting that Ringo and George would spare me a day to come. And it may not be a lecture. It may just be sitting around and just have the kids say, what inspired you? What artists were you inspired by, etc. I don't see it being too formal. And I've no idea how many times I'll be showing up to lecture. It depends on the first lecture. If it's hell, never again. But it won't be. I once met a bloke who was a friend of Ravi Shankar's, digressing a bit here, who was a teacher in India, and apparently on his first day in class he said to all the kids, nobody needs to show up. And they all split. And then gradually one came back, and he did his lecture every day. 2 came back, 3 came back. At the end of the term, he had the sort of biggest class in the school. I'm not saying I'm going to do that, but I like his attitude of saying to kids, look, I've got something maybe to impart to you. It's up to you whether you want to take it or not. We'll have to see.
Piers from the Sun.
Paul, as a father from Liverpool, you must have been, like most of the nation, very moved by what happened in Warrington. You mentioned that Toxteth was left like a bomb site. Warrington was literally left like a bomb site, and 2 little boys were killed. What was your reaction to what happened there?
Well, the same as everyone else's, just dismay, really. That's what I'm talking about, the doom and the gloom. It's very difficult these days to keep a smile on your face. You read the newspapers, and there's terrible things like this, where innocent kids are getting killed. So my reaction is, I think, the same as everyone else's, which is just shock. And we wish it'd end, like I think most people do. That's really it. No, I don't think it's got anything to do with that. I've got also Irish ancestry, but I don't think that's got anything to do with it. It's nothing to do with race, position, party politics, anything. It's just people. And it's bad news, when little kids like that get it in the neck for something they didn't do. And that's where my sympathy lies, is just with people, innocent people, getting slaughtered for something that was nothing to do with them.
Gentleman from German radio again.
I sense this is kind of an impertinent question, but nevertheless. We read about you recently that It
I
would
don't
have
read
been-
newspapers.
It would have been simple for you to have made a single bequest and brought this dream that you've had for 11 years, according to the press release, forward and realised in one stroke. Could you explain your philosophy, why you did not perhaps make it?
Was this what it said in the Sunday Times?
No, it said
It's-
you were
it's
one of
said
the
that-
richest people.
It said that you were working.
Oh, yeah, all that stuff, yeah. Well, I don't read that stuff anyway. And you shouldn't either. It's not good for your health.
Your freedom, and this
Yeah.
would have been one aspect.
No, okay, I know what you're talking about. This kind of thing happens to me quite a lot on a small scale. Just at the little village school that my kids go to, for instance, they'll be fundraising for a computer for the school. Now, as you say, it's very easy for me to just weigh in and say, how much does the computer cost? Bring it there, sure. But then I take away all the pleasure from all the other parents, and I also make myself into money bags in one stroke. And I don't like that kind of thing. I think that other people have got to have a chance. So at the moment, I am the single biggest donor to this thing. So I have given quite a lot of money. But I think, you know, to rob other people of the chance, I don't think it's a clever idea. Because then, as you say, it becomes my school, my responsibility. It lives or dies on me. And I really do think it's important to give other people, for instance, people like the government, a chance to get in on this. Because, you know, we're all paying taxes, and this is only education. This is not like some fancy idea, you know, this is education, really. And that's what's happened. I've really led the fundraising, and I've written to about 30 or 40 friends who are well off and asking them for donations, and they've given stuff. But I wouldn't want to be the single only donor. You know, it doesn't give anyone else a chance. It just means then the whole thing is mine, and anybody else who wanted to have a look in. I mean, we've had checks from a little girl of £5, you know, and I think I wouldn't want to wipe out that kind of spirit. Because to me, it's not just about money, it's about spirit. It's about people coming together in a feeling. When I'm gone, I hope this school will still be there.
You're not old enough yet to be thinking about the present memorial.
Oh, I'm not interested in memorials anyway. You know, I mean, that's for other people. You know, I'm not into that really. I'm more into what's going on right now. And as I say, you know, this school could be something very exciting and inspirational for kids. If I can get involved in something like that, then that's a good thing for me, you know. That's what I believe in. But as to actually doing it in one sweep myself, I really don't think that's a good idea. And I never do that in anything I'm involved in. I will weigh in heavily, but then you've got to give all the other mums and dads a chance to put in their quid, because then they can say, I'm part of that school, not just old money bags there.
Gentleman over here.
Graham Walker, later Music Week. To what extent will this be a European school, or is it essentially going to be a British school? And did you try and seek sponsorship from a British company?
Really, the Grundig Association has come about through two things, really. The school has actually been very interesting for some reason, just to a certain set of circumstances, to people in Germany. They just seem to have picked up the ball. They really seem to be interested in it. We went to Brussels for a fundraising lunch, so that widened it. And then Grundig were interested in the tour that we're currently doing when we get to Germany. So that's really the reason they've come in. But no, it's a British school, and it's really for everybody in the world. It's not even, I mean, it will officially be a British school, but it obviously will have lots of connections in Europe, because that's where we're headed anyway. And it ought to have lots of European connections, I think, these days. But we're hoping also for Japanese and American and other overseas connections. So really, I like to think of it as an international school based in Liverpool.
Tom Duffy up there.
Paul, Tom Duffy from Billboard. I'm wondering what you plan in terms of fundraising efforts in the United States, specifically in regards to the upcoming tour, such as the VIP ticket situation that I know you've begun already.
Basically, it's two main things. I've written a lot of letters to various people in the States, famous actors and people I might know socially, and just sort of said to them, look, there's this school I'm trying to get going. Are you interested? If you are, then send us a donation. That's one of the things we're doing. But as you mentioned, at each of our concerts, we're giving certain privileges for people who want to get these, what we're calling LIPA tickets. And you've got to pay more for them because they're charity, and obviously the money all comes to the charity. I don't take any of it. But they then get special privileges, so it's a special ticket. You can kind of sit in on sound checks and press conferences like this as if anyone would want to. No, but this for some people is a privilege. But it's that kind of thing, we're doing really all we can, and we're going to use these occasions to mention it. And probably everyone I meet, I will be hitting for some sort of donation, either that they come if they're, stars, whatever, that they might come and do a lecture, or that we'll put on fundraising events together. It's, I'm shameless in this. Normally people say, well, terrible, all this commerciality, but when it's charity like this and when the cause is like this, I don't personally care where the money comes from. I'll hit anyone.
Lady, gentleman.
Like you. Get your checkbook out.
Yes. Remembering back to your more perhaps rebellious days, is the aim for LIPA to be a drug-free zone?
No, not necessarily. Why? Have you got any? No. Let's face it. I don't really think you go into questions like that when you're talking about a school. I personally would advocate that it is a drug-free school because generally that's what you do with schools, isn't it? But as to what people do on their own time, I'm not getting into that one. And I don't think anyway there's that much. I don't think it's the only thing that makes you rebellious, But we don't have an official policy on that as of yet. But I would think, like most other establishments, it will be a no, and then just leave people to sort themselves out.
How will you make the initial selection of the pupils? Is it just concentrated around the Liverpool area, or are you going to go wider afield? And is it a sort of competition for the Princess Trust?
No, we're talking about this at the moment. Obviously, this is something that will happen in about 1994. We start having to have our policy on that. There'll have to be some sort of a test, but as I'm saying, it's not going to be an intelligence test, and we haven't actually worked it out yet. It's, I think people have to be reasonably bright, but if you're talking about someone who's an amazing comedian, then he doesn't need to be able to read or write, I would have thought. But, we've got to keep very flexible about that. I don't think it'll be a standard type examination. It'd probably be more likely to be a bunch of the teachers or the board. And it'll be really for them to judge who they think will be the best students, It's a difficult question because, how is anyone going to know who's got some hidden talent? But that's something we'll just have to have a go at. But there will be some form of examination. But as I say, I don't think it'll be based on your academic skills.
Yes, our great triumph will be that we won't have, I can tell you now, we won't have GCA levels as an entry requirement.
Michael McDonald, BBC Radio Scotland. You mentioned it before about help from the government. What sort of help have you had so far from the government?
It's not a question of what we've had, it's what's coming. What happens these days, as you probably know, is that if you show enough willing and you show enough ability to be able to raise funds, then the government then will say, okay, this looks like a goer, we can get involved in this. And my understanding is that's what's been happening. And that we just, this week, we've got some very good news that I think now qualifies us for sort of matching funding. We've had letters of support, which is very useful at the Brussels lunch. It was very good to be able to say the Prime Minister is behind this, And we've had an actual donation from Her Majesty, the Queen, which is not that usual, Apparently she often sends letters of support, but not always actual checks. So we've had some very good support, and I think the answer to your question is that as far as the government's concerned, it's going to be in the future. We're expecting news.
On that very point, can I ask, what you're doing is laudable. We are told that you wrote to 600 British companies and that 90% of them turned you down. and now you've gone to Brussels, cap in hand, and you've approached a German company in Nuremberg.
Yeah.
How do you feel about so many leading British companies giving your project the thumbs down?
Well, we're in a recession, that's what we realised when we were doing it. Everyone's got problems, it's really probably the worst time we could have ever chosen to fundraise. And some people are better off than others. I personally, it wasn't actually me, hand wrote all those notes. I led the appeal to those people, so I didn't feel personally affronted. Look, the thing is, when you fundraise and you take whatever you can get, and the people who turn you down, you don't go away and cry about that. You just think, right, we'll hit them another time. No, but I didn't feel insulted or anything. We've had some very good reactions, and I can't blame them in a time of recession for not being able to open the checkbooks.
Gentleman there from the New Yorker magazine.
Mark Richard, the New Yorker. You mentioned earlier that part of the reason for this school is that you wanted to give people hope for the future, and people in Europe in particular. You were quoted recently in a magazine in the States, the New World Journal, saying that you have a lot of confidence that humanity does eventually sort things out, a great propensity to sort things out, you said. I wonder what you tell people who do read the papers and feel like it's going to hell and wonder whether there's going to be a human race in 100 years. What do you tell those people beyond supporting your admirable enterprise here, and why in particular do you have that faith that 100 years from now? What do you tell yourself? And is it simply a matter of faith or sort of cheerleading, or do you really believe that?
No, in my case, it's just optimism. I mean, I know people, obviously in Liverpool, who've come through much greater hardships than we're going through now. And if you look at history, people have suffered the worst things ever, but somehow they rebound, and there's somehow this little flower of hope keeps coming back, every year kind of thing, every so often. And one of the great things, in fact, about this German connection, is that we just did a concert there recently, and I was doing a song of ours called Come On People, which expresses this optimism. And I saw a lot of young German kids looking at me as if to say, well, I'm glad someone's saying there might be a future. Yes, to some degree, it is cheerleading. Well, I don't see anything wrong in that. If it's a faith, it's a blind faith. I have no reason to think, other than the fact that we are here now, after the world's history. With what we've been through, I think it's surprising that there's any sanity and there's any order on earth. And yet, every so often it just raises its head, people get optimistic again. And I like to do all I can to encourage that, because I think one of the problems is if you get too deep into pessimism, like the people you're mentioning. I say I don't read the newspapers, but I keep up with the news. I know what's going on. And I have my days when, like anyone else, I just think this isn't going to work out. But the day after, I always change my mind. And it can be just for some silly reasons, where, it's not a great act of faith. It can be just talking to one of my kids or something. This can get very soppy sounding, because I can get into sort of, babies and children and life and all of this stuff. And without getting it too soppy, I do believe in some sort of spirit of life. I may be proved wrong. Fine, that's okay too. We'll blow up together if I'm proved wrong. But I've got a feeling that the world has got this propensity to work its problems out. We've got a lot of problems to work out at the moment, but I just have this optimistic feeling. In the end, through bouts of pessimism, that something will happen. It always used to happen in the Beatles. It was always one of the stories. We were stranded once up the motorway in a British winter, and fog and sleet and blizzards, and our windscreen had blown out, and one of us said to the other, what's going to happen now, It was 3 a.m. or something, and one of the others, I can't remember who it was, so something will happen. And that became our philosophy, just something will happen. Well, it's pretty soppy, and it's nothing to tell anyone, but it worked for me. So I am still a believer in that something will happen. Can't tell you what. Maybe LIPA. He said, bringing it back neatly to the subject in hand.
Lady right at the back there.
Hi, Paul. Sally Stratton from Rockover, London. You mentioned earlier you're not interested in a memorial for yourself, but do you think the school could act as some sort of a memorial to John's musical spirit?
Yeah, I think, in a way, without any of us wanting memorials, I think it will become that kind of thing anyway. I think just the fact that the Beatles were from Liverpool, a lot of the interest is going to be because of that fact. So I think, to some degree, if we get it right and if it works, it will be a good memorial, really. But I know John wasn't interested in memorials. I think if he'd been here now, I don't think he'd be looking for a memorial. He'd be looking for some hope for the future. He'd be looking for something positive. I think memorial's got a kind of final sound to it, inevitably. And we're not looking at finishing, we're looking at beginning.
Last question, I'm afraid.
Paul, Adrian Nicholas from Capital FM. We've had a lot of calls on this. You're about to go tearing off around the world. Do you have any plans yet? Have you found room in your schedule? What's going to happen about playing in London?
I don't have the exact plan yet. We will be playing in England, but before that we've got quite a long time in the States. Up till August we're going to be in the States. So we're only just now working out our plans for Britain and Europe. But we will play here. Well, I just don't know exactly when yet.
Do you know where?
Nope. I don't know where or when, Adrian.
All right.
But we'll meet again.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers, thank you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Cheers, thanks, Mark. All right, mate.